All right. And welcome everyone to the Ginette Biro Podcast. I'm Ginette Biro, and I am thrilled today to be interviewing not only an amazing, intuitively gifted soul, but a dear, dear friend of mine, Lisa Richmond. You've been on the show before, and I'm thrilled to have you back so often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, it's a treat to have you here again. And, um, today I really wanted to focus on talking about having gifts, having intuitive gifts and what it's like, and, a little bit about your journey because this is a common thing and we've both been there, right? Like as your gifts are evolving and opening, you're wondering, like, what the heck is happening to me, first of all. Second, you're like, is this real or am I crazy?
Yeah.
And why is mine different than somebody else's? Or why do I do it this way? Or why do I do it that way? And so there is no one linear path, right?
No,
Exploring
that's
your
for,
gifts.
yeah.
And so that's kind of where I want to direct it first, if we can. But before I do, I just want to let everybody know that you have so much value in this topic because not only are you an amazingly beautiful channeler, like you do it with such grace, but you dive in completely when you channel for someone. Like there's no distractions. You are 100% there, which is, first of all, amazing.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, but it's also part of your gift is so full bodied, but you embraced it, and the speed of which it opened was fantastic. I mean, in a massive, large, fast way. Like you had to get on this roller coaster and hang on and go. And so
Mhm.
I kind of want to touch on that too, because it's,
Mhm.
again, there's no one linear way. For some people, it opens slow, and others, it opens really fast. So
Mhm.
um, let's
Mine
chat a
was
little.
incredibly quickly.
Yours was. It really
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
So
Hold on.
I know, right? Let's talk a little bit about what you do. So how would
Okay.
you explain what you do to everybody?
It's kind of difficult to really like label it. It's not really something to be able to label. One size fits all. But I suppose getting comfortable with my gifts, first of all, has helped me articulate them, I guess.
Mhm.
For a long time, I would have just put myself more in that like counseling, coaching kind of area. That's like my academia, like that's my academic background. I did like psychology and developmental psychology and brain development and mental health. And then I kind of started gearing it more to families and women, and it all kind of came back to trauma. And then as my intuitive gifts started kind of coming back, I had them a lot as a child,
Mhm.
and then of course turned them off and became very 3D. And I think that was more of a survival thing. I think a lot of people can identify with that. And then as my gifts, my intuitive gifts started coming back, it was how kind of both worlds started integrating. So I started getting messages from people whom I had never met before from the other side. So people who had passed. And I remember telling my husband, I'd wake up in the morning and be like, so and so's mom came and visited me overnight, and I'd never met them before, and I could explain what they look like to a T, like
Mhm.
perfectly, and what they were saying and messages they were giving me, I would have never been able to know,
Mhm.
right? And so that's when I started being like, okay, well, there has to be something to this because I'm not making this up and I would never be able to know this.
Yeah.
And then but I would lots of times kind of put it on the back burner, being like, no way am I delivering these messages. People are
Mhm.
going to look at me like I have 10 heads, right? And so I was really caught up in that for a while. And then it kind of got to the point where spirit had visited me in many different kind of forms, through dreams, through perfectly awake times, through messages, through writing, channeling. And it just got to be to the point where I was like, okay, I'm gonna just let this happen. How do you want me to do this? And once I agreed to open my heart space up to hear the messages and to really dive into my gift, kind of shot me forward, really literally,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
And I agreed to it. And then I just surrendered to this process. And so how this has looked to me now is still like my passion for working with people and for the greater good. And that's always my why behind everything I do. I wake up every single morning and I say, in whatever capacity pulls me forward, let it be through the highest light vibration and for the greatest good of all. And I really believe that. And so if I can help anybody or everybody in the process of how spirit can come talk to me and deliver messages that are always for the greater good,
Mm-hmm.
and whether that be for the collective good, for an individual good, for helping on the other side, or whatever capacity it might be, I just bring my heart space forward in as much love capacity as I can, and work with the gift that was given to me. And so that can still sound maybe a little foreign to people, and that's another thing I've had to really accept, that it's okay if not everybody understands, because I probably wouldn't have understood me talking about this, 5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's been a beautiful journey, and I feel such a gratitude, being able to really surrender, like I say, surrender into it, and
Mm-hmm.
work through my heart space with pure love and light from source energy, and helping people. And
Mm-hmm.
that shows up in so many different ways. That's another thing, is when I work with people, it can look very different. I'm also a yoga teacher, and so I can do some like kind of energetic work with people through movement too,
Mm-hmm.
and really connecting with women through all sorts of like any kind of, I don't want to say issues, but life experience, whether it be any kind of types of trauma, or just like holding space as a woman in this day and age. It's like I feel like that's a big passion for me, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a great way for me to connect with women and families and children. And spirit continues to guide me on these beautiful paths to work with women and have women show up, for me to work with. I work with men too, but I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that was the background. That's kind of been my background.
Yeah. And I mean, you bring so many actual experiences to the table as well. So you have this like amazing ability to relate to people on a human level, first of all, and then take it into the spiritual journey of it. So that's what's really neat, is like in
Mm.
your lifetime, your short lifetime so far, you have had so many vast, in-depth human experiences that give you this ability for compassion, which then
I've had a
almost
lot.
seems, yeah, you have had a lot, but it
Yeah.
seems like it allows you to like meet people right where they're at and then just
Mm.
dive in. Like there's no
Mm.
needing to get there. Like you just like
Mhm.
show up and you dive in. Because I know anytime that I turn to you and I'm like, Lisa, I need your help. I can't get out of my way. Because that's one thing we got to say, I do want to highlight, is being a medium, uh, we get in our own way, right? Like it's easier to be a medium for people you don't know. It's easier to channel for people you don't know, for people that aren't in
Yeah,
your close family, and especially for
100%.
yourself,
Mhm.
right? So the
Oh,
amount of times,
absolutely.
the amount of
Yeah.
times I've come to you and been like, I can't figure this out, or I'm in my own way, or whatnot. And you've been able to just meet me right there. You're right there and you're
Mm.
like, let's go. I'm diving. And you are off and diving. I
Oh,
think truly that's what makes you so unique, is you have this ability to do it. And it's not like you're sitting around all day waiting for these things to happen. You're a busy mom of 4. You've got a
mhm.
full household. You've got your own life and clients and kids and activities and your own spiritual journey and your own, like all of these things, and your husband, and you have a lot on your plate, but you have this ability to switch your mind and show up 100% and dive. It's phenomenal.
Mm.
I think it's
Thank
amazing.
you.
Yeah.
That I'm so grateful to spirit for that, because I feel like with the intention of showing up,
Mhm.
that is a like a conscious intention I put out every day, because I want to be able to show up, and I feel like this is something that is such a big part of my life,
Mhm.
that it is so important to me, and it's so important to be able to tap into where I need to tap into, and show
Mhm.
up. So I am, oh my goodness, like I am so incredibly grateful. every day for my ability to do that and for spirit to show up for me and with me in these moments. Really, truly. And that's often something that I don't want to forget either, is like after doing a channel or working with somebody and being able to get these clear messages, then to have gratitude afterwards. And thanks to everybody and everything and every light that showed up to help me to do it.
Yeah.
And show gratitude for that too, because I feel like that really has a lot to do with it. It's not just like, give me messages, let me do this, blah, 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 because I feel like that might conflict a bit with, ego a bit. And so if I just really, truly try to stay in my heart space with gratitude, I feel like that is what has really helped me be able to connect in the capacity that I have.
Yeah. And you've mentioned it a couple of times. It's such a good point to highlight, is the heart space. I know one of the very first things Spirit ever told me, and I've mentioned this many times, is they said the first lesson you're going to learn is the secrets reside in your heart. Anything you want to know in the universe, the cosmos, or anything, you have to go into the heart first. Right? Like we have to go in first before we can expand and whatnot. We have to go in and we have to maneuver what that is like. And it's not, again, that's not a linear way. It's simply turning inwards and seeing what it looks like for you, how it is you go into it, whether it be meditation, walking, yoga, fitness, journaling, whatever the thing is that draws you into yourself to look around at what's there is so important to go to that heart space.
And it feels different when you go into that heart space. Yeah. Like I can really articulate how it's evolved for me over the last couple of years, is because it was hard to kind of flip back and forth between my logical mind and thinking through things and then going into my heart space and actually feeling it and not feeling it in a linear way, not thinking about how it feels really.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like, yeah. And it's something that I don't believe we have the ability to measure as 3D humans. It's just a way of being that you can reside in and feel, okay, I'm there, right? Instead of, am I doing it right? And I know that can be really difficult for people, is to get out of their heads and their thought process, because I mean, that's what we've been taught since the beginning, is like, what were you thinking? Really use your head. Think about that. You know what I mean? Instead of being like, I don't know, baby, feel into it, like that's a bit of a different concept. So, learning what that looks like and feels like for me, and just easing into the heart space has been probably the biggest gift, because then that allows me to get through the other stuff in my day to day.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, when you're moving into that space, so we say, like, if we could possibly give it a vague linear way, we would say enter into the heart space first. And then we have to try and like shut off the brain. And I know for me, when I'm sitting in a session with somebody and I go in to tune in and see what's there, I almost have this imagery of whatever's happening in my brain just kind of filters out and sloughs away until it's on the side, and then there's just nothing. And then it's in the nothingness that the stuff shows up. But I have to let this slough or like dissipate to the side, but I can't control it. I can't tell it how fast it has to go. I have to just simply say, let go, and it just lets go and creates a void. So what is
That's
that like
why
for you?
I agree. I totally agree. And that's why sometimes it's easier to do a session with people that you don't really know, first of all, and you don't know the situation in which they're talking to you about. So they can give you a bit of background about like a specific question they want to know, but it's like, if you know all the details behind things or the people involved, then it's harder for your like conscious mind to dissipate your own opinions and thought process or imagery even that is human. And so
Not
to
that
get
it
out
can't
of
be done.
no it can be, of course,
Yeah, it
yeah.
just takes more.
And then sometimes I will say, like, I'm not sure if it's just like me and my experiences within this that feels this, but this is kind of where I'm geared towards. But in other times, I must say, when I've read for family, I can feel when it comes through me and I start talking, and like my voice will change a little bit, and the tone in which it changes and the
Yeah.
words that I'll use won't be me.
Mm-hmm.
And it will start, my voice and like the messages that I'm saying will start to come through from an outside perspective. You can tell it's not from me. Like I'll start naming like
Mm-hmm.
me or like people from a perspective that isn't me.
Yeah.
And then quite often if I'm channeling for somebody, it will identify who is like, not who, but like the light energy that is coming through to deliver the message,
Mm-hmm.
which is not me,
Yes.
which is not Lisa Richmond. So, and then afterwards, and it's interesting because if anybody does a session with me that is face to face, that can see me, I'll close my eyes and I kind of like look off, and I don't even realize I'm doing it, but I close my eyes and I look off and and I'll be channeling and I see and then all of a sudden I'll stop and look and be like, that's it. Like you
Right.
can see when I
Yeah.
kind of come back. I'm always here, obviously, but
Yes.
it's like this beautiful, like I become the messenger. And so I'm really like, I can really feel it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know if that really
Yeah.
answers your question. Yes, I ask for my guides, and I communicate to the highest light energy and the highest source to bring in, of course, messages through light and love,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And then again, breath is what like almost takes out conscious, like my conscious thought, and then the breath, and then the light comes kind of like through my top chakra.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, like sometimes I'll be like, am I going to get anything? Like,
Yeah. Right. That
and then
moment.
all of a sudden, yeah, that moment of nothingness.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, come on, the other person's waiting. And then all of a sudden it'll filter in, and then I'll know, and I'll say things, and I'll connect with people in those moments with more feelings of security and like knowingness, like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, they're showing me this and this and this and this, and I'll know that it's for them because it has nothing to do with me,
Yeah.
right? But if I'm just passing somebody by and they say, hey Lisa, like, what's the lottery tickets or something silly like that, I'll be like, yeah, like,
Yeah. It doesn't
right,
work that way.
it
Yeah.
doesn't work that way, and that's fine. But to really trust in the process has become something big for me now too,
Mm-hmm.
because before I would get these like really specific messages or imagery, or I would embody something. That's also something I'm really learning, that
Mm-hmm.
the sickness or the aches, they're not mine. And so I'll like tap in and be like, okay, where's this coming from, right? But then having the validation, so I've been like, okay, spirit, like if this is accurate, let me know with a sign, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it only had to happen over and over and over again before I'm like, okay,
Got it.
I get it, I got it. And then to the point where it's like, no more of that, no more playing in the I don't know
Yeah.
phase.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
now, get your own stuff aside, your
Mm-hmm.
own insecurities aside,
Mm-hmm.
deal with that on a different base, but
Yeah.
now, here and now, is your calling to do what your soul agreed to, and what
Mm-hmm.
your higher self has signed up for in this divine soul contract for me.
Yeah.
And so stepping into that, I'm like, okay, I can
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah. And you're so right. And it's such a willingness to like leap and dive and feel that void for a minute, like the void of a
Yeah,
free fall, to get out of your own way. Because otherwise your ego is always going to want to keep you safe and supported. And so,
totally.
yeah. And I love how you're talking about all these different ways that it comes through, whether it's like giving the messages where you are that interpreter, or the times when it channels directly through you,
Hmm.
or the times where you experience it through your body. Because
Hmm.
I can totally resonate with that too, that it's similar in some ways for me, where there's times where I am giving the messages in the reading, like your grandmother is saying this and this, or
Hmm.
you're
Hmm.
this and this. And then there's other times where I've had the spirit just say to me, excuse me, can I just come through like direct? I'll just do a better job. And I've had that
Yeah.
happen. So I've told the person like, I'm just going to flip into just direct channel. I'm like, nothing scary will happen, but and you're right. Like my voice will sound different, not
Hmm.
completely different, but it has a different like tone and different
Hmm.
cadence. And the words are very different, not my
Hmm.
language of interpretation. And um, So it's really neat. The more you learn to get out of your own way and really
Mm-hmm.
separate, the more your gift can show you what it is. And then, like you're saying, how it moves into the embodiment of things. And you're like, wait a minute,
Mm-hmm.
these aches and pains, or this nausea, or this
Mm-hmm.
chest pressure isn't mine. What is
Mm-hmm.
it? And it can tell you a
Mm-hmm.
story. And so
Yep.
you go from, just say, starting with visions, right? And when you open and you continue to go into that heart space, and you continue to open and trust and leap and trust and leap, what you can access becomes so much more. And
Yeah,
you
it's
find
unbelievable.
that the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, and the more vast it becomes,
Yeah,
right?
because it just, you totally,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought for forever, just the clairvoyancy for me, like I'm like, okay, they're showing me in visions and pictures and like it almost looks like movies, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, there's other things too.
Yeah.
And I think what's beautiful about it is just that, is letting the divine work in whichever capacity is going to be for the greatest good,
Yeah.
because
Absolutely.
some people need to connect in a different way. And so if I'm
Yeah.
working with somebody and all of a sudden I can feel like the pain in my body, I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, so how long has the chronic pain been going on?
Mm-hmm.
And this is where it's stemming from,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
tell me about that.
Yeah.
Because if they're not telling me about that, spirit will be like, okay, well, let's go back and let's get, if you're going to do this, and they're open and willing, like, their guides always have to give me permission to access their higher self, and
Yeah.
that's a boundary in which I am comfortable using, and without that I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's not going to go forward.
Yeah.
And so somebody can consciously be like, yeah, let's give it a try. But if what I need to access or to help them, there's a block up, I won't get anything. I'll
What a
just get
good
like,
point.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's okay. And I can say, hey, maybe try opening the channels, or you could even go on like YouTube and see about a chakra meditation, or just curiosity, just to see like if they can open up themselves a little
Mhm.
bit for it,
Yeah.
and then we can try again, kind of
Yeah.
thing. But you got to trust the openness. And if I can tell right away if their guides show up,
Yeah.
if their
Yeah.
guides show up and I'm like, okay, they're here, okay, we're
Yeah.
gonna get something,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so again, it's not a slag on me if I'm like, I'm not getting anything, like,
Mm-hmm.
what can we do to maybe open up to this process? And if not, that's okay too, and I've had to get out
Definitely.
of my own way for that too, because there's a bit of an
Right.
ego involved with that. It's like, what if I don't get anything? What if I don't get the right things? It's like, if they show up,
Yeah.
you're going to get the right things, and if they don't, then you won't.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Beautiful. That's
yeah.
so, yeah. And, and that's how you can really tell when you're in the flow, is when you're willing to show up without having to, know what it's going to be, control how it's going to be, and just surrender to the process. And so I think for anybody that is, searching out videos like this to discover how to open their own psychic, mediumistic
Mhm,
channeling gifts, it's really like, acknowledge what's happening first of all, like
mhm,
notice it and acknowledge it, whether you
mhm.
understand it or not. And then, as much as you can, get out of the way for it to show you what it is,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right? But then don't be afraid to ask questions to gain more information, because that's
Mhm.
one of the things I fumbled on in the beginning, is I didn't ask enough questions, and I would see something and I'd be like, well, I don't know what it means. And then they're like,
Right.
well, ask. I'm like, oh, you can do that? Like,
Yeah.
you can ask spirit for
Totally.
more,
Yeah.
or like say you
Yeah.
don't understand.
Yeah.
Um,
And you know what? I really like, what just keeps coming up for me as you talk about this, is for people who are really wanting to access their inner knowing and their intuition.
mhm,
I truly believe from the bottom of my heart, everybody can access to a point that really
mm,
resonates with them. And not saying that everybody can like be this a medium kind of thing, but they can access things to be able to communicate with spirit and their guides. And like, everybody has that ability. I really believe that.
yeah,
But people say, well, then how? Like you said at the beginning, it's different for everybody. And so I really would encourage anybody who wants to connect to find the things that continue to show up in their life that resonate or that feels light, or that it's like, what is it? So for example, it could be maybe crystals or rocks, or maybe essential oils, if that really resonates with them, or if it's nature, if it's just being outside, or if it's specifically trees or flowers, or if it's feathers show up for people. Maybe that's a sign. So be like, okay, sitting down, taking a second, breathe into it. What comes up for you when you're really breathing into it, connecting to your heart? What are the things that kind of show up in your mind or your thoughts? Is it, oh yeah, it is that, or animals or children, and so be like, okay, I'm going to use these things to help me connect with my inner knowing. So my guides and my guides that are here with me, because everybody's got them, that can help me with this. I'm asking you, please, to step forward and help me with this. Help show me the signs that can help me go forward. So if it's feathers or children or animals, when this shows up, give me that little click of, oh yeah, what's going on in that time? Are you doing something that lights you up and then all of a sudden you see a feather? Are you working with animals and all of a sudden you're feeling your lightness? Like, ask your guides or spirit to come forward in those moments that light you up or that you feel connected to. And it can be as simple as that. And then all of a sudden start asking more questions or start getting guided to do something. And then all of a sudden when you're on that trail that you're going on a walk, you find this feather and you're like, what was I thinking about? Is this the right direction? And then all of a sudden having something show up. And it's real and it's true. And it's a good way to connect to your heart. It's a good way to connect to your body and to your spirit. And then you actually start doing a lot more things that your true higher self is designed to do or is in your greatest good, right? You're not just sitting there and being like, but what else? But what else? Give me more. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't get up, ask for that help, be a participant in your journey. And then be open to it and see what shows up for you. And then acknowledge it and be like, yeah, I got this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Does that make sense?
It totally does. And celebrate the wins. And the wins are those times where you get the click and you're like, oh my gosh, that and that. Like, I knew that, or I saw that, or I felt that, or, celebrate the wins. And each time you do, it clicks you closer and closer and closer to opening you up to the everything, whatever is meant to be on your journey in terms of utilizing spiritual gifts. It's there. And so, yeah, I love your willingness to share this. And, we could talk about this for days. You and I do pretty much anyway. I really appreciate you highlighting this. And, we'll do more of this, but I just want to highlight too that before we wrap up here, if people want to book a session with you, they can do so on avalonspirit.com.
That's where to go.
You're offering intuitive mediumship-based sessions that really, like we said, you're opening a door to whatever it is they need to know, hear, understand.
And quite often it does move into not a coaching, because I don't coach. I allow the individual to feel like they kind of get back on track with things. You know what I mean? And it's not me, it's always spirit that shows up in beautiful ways. And then I feel like what somebody can expect is to come in and just with an open heart and a willingness to participate, a willingness to show up. And from that point on, it's just a journey with that person and spirit. And they get to, I believe, come out of there really feeling like they can be on track and go forward.
And
that's what someone can expect.
Reason. Yeah. And that's beautiful. And that's what readings should do. And, that's just a good point to touch on is readings shouldn't be a scary experience. It shouldn't cause more trauma and turmoil. No matter what the content is, it should be giving you more understanding, more peace, more places to put things, to settle, to calm, to motivate. It should bring together and lift up. It shouldn't pull apart and destroy.
No,
Right?
I have,
So,
yeah, that's not how I work. And I won't deliver these, like, that's not how I work. That's not how spirit works through me. Like, like, spirit is never going to be a Debbie Downer. It's never going to be like, well, looks like you really made some mistakes. Like, it never comes through like that ever.
Yeah.
And so I know that that's one of the reasons why I love it so much, is because after every call, I'm like, wow, spirit, that was amazing. Like,
Right.
yes.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's how you know it's in the flow, truly.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for taking
Thank
the
you for
time.
having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll be back on the show again. We've got lots to share. And yeah, for all of those of you listening, do check Lisa out on avalonspirit.com under personal journey guides. You will see her there and you can book with her there because it is so worth it. And I am saying this not only as your friend, but like I have had so much help from you on my journey when I get stuck too, even though I can access stuff. You have helped me through a lot of crux points. So it's really worth your time, you guys. So
Thank you
thank you
so much.
again, Lisa. We
Okay.
will have you back on again. And for now, have an amazing rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.